This is one of these things that I didn't personally connect the dots on until I saw this article. I know HabsFanatics.com has a rep, and a lot of y'all don't necessarily like the fact that a lot of these talking points that we make videos about come from this particular website, but again, it's the start of August and we got nothing to talk about, so why not dive into what exactly is talked about here? Because I didn't realize this until reading this piece, but the idea behind this piece by Elias Edmondson is so interesting. Let's dive into the Montreal Canadiens and whether or not the Habs have an August trade in store for the fourth straight year. Let's go out there and see what it is Edmondson's talking about. Following the acquisitions of Noah Dobson and Bolduc earlier this summer, rumors are starting to intensify regarding Mason McTavish. Yes, that is true. It was Anthony DeMarco who said on the Daily Faceoff show about a week ago that the Canadiens are one of the clubs that are keeping close tabs on McTavish's availability. This was also expanded upon even more on rg.org like 2 days ago, talking about how the Red Wings, the Canadiens, and the Carolina Hurricanes are all involved in McTavish trade talks. It's been kind of a slow news month, to be honest, but the Canadiens are apparently in there. And what's more, everything indicates Kent Hughes will really need to find a good second-line center before the start of next season, following the worrying announcement involving Kirby Dach. That is also an idea that I think we have to dive into as well. Kirby Dach, his health status, is it really all that well? I'm not too sure, but I guess we will wait and see. Knowing all this, we shouldn't lose hope of seeing a trade, because Kent Hughes has a habit of getting back on the phone in August, and even of pulling off big trades. And I didn't even notice this until this article pointed it out. But every year, Kent Hughes has made a big trade in August. Every year. On October 18th, 2022, Kent Hughes acquired Sean Monahan in one of the best trades the Montreal Canadiens have ever made, in one of the best trades that Kent Hughes has ever made. Monahan and a first for nothing? We already made all our video commentaries talking about how that trade was crazy good because Monahan ended up becoming good for Montreal. You then go from 2022 to 2023. On August 6, 2023, Kent Hughes acquired Jeff Petrie in a big 3-team trade before retrading him. Yeah, newsflash, the August 6, 2023 trade, that was the Erik Karlsson trade. So, 3-way deal between Montreal, Pittsburgh, and San Jose. Technically, it was just Pittsburgh making 2 separate deals with Montreal and the Sharks, but they all kind of went down at the same time, so we could just say it's a 3-team trade. It was the Erik Karlsson deal. Really big deal. Montreal acquired Petrie and Casey DeSmith. They ended up sending those assets away to other teams. And then last year, on August 19th, 2024, Kent Hughes acquired Patrik Laine. The article then asks, will Kent Hughes acquire a Jordan Kyrou or a Mason McTavish in August 2025? Now, that, of course, is an entirely other type of player compared to the ones over here. I think if you dive into each of Kent Hughes' August acquisitions, they all have some sort of a difficulty attached to them. Maybe not now, but at the time, definitely. Let's take a look at each of these guys the Canadiens ended up acquiring. Big moves and big outcomes. But Sean Monahan was probably the best case scenario that Montreal could have gotten in that trade. He was coming off of a pretty meh year in Calgary. 23 points, 65 games played. The Flames were paying Kent Hughes to take this guy off of their hands because they were like, hey, he's not really all too great for us anymore. He's been hurt over and over and over, and he's got a pretty beefy cap hit. We don't want him anymore. Kent Hughes, here you go. Take a first-round pick to get this guy off of our team. And Kent Hughes said, for sure. Monahan then provided immediate value for the Montreal Canadiens. 2 seasons of production before inevitably getting flipped over to Winnipeg for yet another first-round pick. The Habs got free production and multiple firsts out of this guy. That is a crazy, crazy deal. But I can understand why Calgary stepped in and said, yeah, we don't want this guy. He's holding up our cap structure. We are really not able to go where we want to go because we have this contract. And maybe that assessment was really harsh for a guy like Monahan, who was a former top pick in Calgary and who was so good. I mean, he was an 82-point guy at one point. But things change quickly in the NHL. And that's how quickly Sean Monahan went from a super beloved all-star caliber guy to a future considerations trade deal. That took 3 years for it to go down that way. Now, going over onto the other trades that Kent Hughes made in August, Jeff Petrie, of course. I mean, we understand the value that Jeff Petrie had as a member of the Canadiens in 2021, but he got traded over to Pittsburgh once, and then got traded back to Montreal a year later in the Erik Karlsson deal before the Habs pulled off a solid and they were like, okay, Jeff, we're going to send you over to Detroit. You'll play in the same city that your dad played in. That's all good, right? Like, we want to see that hometown connection be put in there. Here's Dan Petrie for the Detroit Tigers and the legacy over there. But Jeff Petrie was a pretty crappy Red Wing, especially towards the end, I would say. 8 points, 44 games. This guy was not great. Sure, he had 24 points in 73 games in his first year with Detroit. That's fine. But there was a lot more to be desired out of Jeff Petrie. Now he's in Florida. He has signed a really cheap contract at $775,000. Honestly, if there's a team that see value out of Jeff Petrie, it's probably Florida. Like, they always get these defensemen that are overpaid and maybe not all too great, like OEL and Nate Schmidt and I guess now Jeff Petrie, and they turn them into very useful, versatile bottom caliber pieces, and they end up winning cups. So I guess Jeff Petrie, thank you, Jeff, for your service in Detroit, but he's going out there and chasing his ring, if you wanted to say that. One time around in the finals with Montreal wasn't good enough, I guess. And then you head over to Patrik Laine. This guy got sent over to Montreal simply because of the same reason Monahan got sent over to Montreal. He was expensive, and the team didn't want him anymore. That was pretty highly documented last year, and Laine, to his credit, did have some really good, fun, amazing moments with the Montreal Canadiens. 33 points in 52 games played and 20 goals, a whole bunch of power play production, and a glimmer of hope as to what could be if this guy is able to stay healthy and be a contributing force everywhere in Montreal. I'm going to say 5v5. That's really the big thing that Laine has to improve on, that and consistency. But the point is, all of these guys had some sort of negative attached to them as to why it was they got sent over to Montreal in August of 2022, 2023, and 2024. Monahan and Laine were cap dumps. Jeff Petrie was also some sort of a cap dump that Pittsburgh got rid of in order to open up a spot for Erik Karlsson. And then Montreal immediately flipped Petrie over to Detroit. So, any one of these trades, yes, they were made in August, and we can dive into them for sure, but Jordan Kyrou or Mason McTavish, August 2025, that would be a really big step up, I would say. It's just a question as to whether or not Kent Hughes has that appetite to make yet another big August trade. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Is a Kyrou or McTavish trade for Montreal happening soon? And will this be next in line in Kent Hughes' series of August trades? 2 years ago, it was August 6, last year was August 19, and 3 years ago, it was August 18. So if you average it out, could we see a Kent Hughes trade maybe on the 10th or the 11th? I'm not really too sure. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.